Welcome to the HS Warrior Podcast. And welcome to the HS Warrior Podcast. I am your host, Michael Spitzer, here with the podcast. Very first one ever. Awesome. I am also better known as DJ Power Mike. I am a local DJ, stand-up comedian, and now a podcaster, it seems. I am based out of South Florida. I will say some crazy crap on here, so if you got kids listening around, I would definitely probably put in headphones. I will try not to say crazy stuff, but sometimes I feel crazy, you know. Some days you just got to wake up and crush up some Viagra, snort it, and go say fuck the world, because that's how we live. Anyway, what is the HS Warrior Podcast? I know a lot of you might think you know what it is or anything, but it is basically a podcast for entertainment to help raise awareness about the disease Hidradenitis Suppurativa. If you've never heard of it, it is a very common disease, but not very heard about. So that's why we're going to break the stigma about talking about it, and we're going to talk about it from the point of view of the patient. And I am a patient. I am an HS survivor, HS warrior, whatever you want to call it. I have Hidradenitis Suppurativa. If you know someone that does, or if you are just listening to this because you care for somebody that does, hey, you're not alone, and we are here for you. If you don't know what it is, let me give you just a brief explanation as by how I understand it, okay? I am not a medical expert. As a matter of fact, I am a comedian, I'm a DJ, I'm an entertainer. Okay, I will at a later date, at more episodes, have doctors on here and stuff, and they might be better able to explain it. But as far as I can see and as I understand it as a patient, it is an auto-inflammatory disease. Now, what does that mean? Those are some big words. Basically, we all have staph living on our skin. And staph just waits, for a little cut or something to get in. And then that creates what's known as a staph infection. Well, in the HS warrior, as we like to be called, or HS patient, HS survivor, as it happens in our bodies, our body reacts a lot differently to how staph interacts with our body. We get recurring boils and abscesses in some of the most tender places. Now, the tender places are common, but yes, you can have HS like on your neck, on your head, on your hands, on your legs. Me personally, my flare-up areas are in between my legs, my inner thighs, my buttocks, my ass, basically. It is a pain in my ass disease. On my scrotum. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's also a pain in my balls. And also, I've had it in my armpits before, not that much. But listen, it affects different people in different ways. As a matter of fact, they don't really know what causes it yet. I'm hoping one day we can look back at this podcast and be like, you remember when we had no idea what it was? But they're doing more and more research about it. And this podcast, along with other things and other communities, I know are trying to spread more light, because I know for me instantly, not instantly, Jesus, I'm sounding a little bit nervous here, huh? For me, I went out, for years and just thought maybe it was, I had to keep up better hygiene. Maybe it was because I was overweight. At one point, I thought maybe I had an STD. I didn't know what in the world was going on, and it turned out to be in an emergency room. A doctor finally told me the term Hidradenitis Suppurativa. And of course, a pain in the ass disease literally would have a pain in the ass name. So I learned to refer to it as HS. It's a lot easier to say and it'll save some time. Anyway, that is probably the best explanation I can give you about HS from a layman's terms. Really, I'm going to focus more on dealing with it day to day. Some people have it better than others, some people have it worse. Something about this disease, and probably a reason why it isn't talked about so much, is it lives under our clothing for the most part. It's in areas you can't see. That's why I picked out for this podcast the two armored warriors, because you don't know what's going on below the armor. All you see is the clothes, and you might not realize somebody has a big abscess that maybe hasn't exploded, or maybe it's just open and leaking. I know that happens a lot with me. I constantly leak fluids. I have open wounds all the time in some of the most sensitive places. So, something for me going into a restaurant and seeing hard chairs is a no-no, because it literally is a pain in my ass. And I know I'm not alone, and I know there are other warriors out there. So this is for all of us, the caretakers, the people, the sufferers, even the people that care. I have a very supportive wife, thank God, that really understands that this is not my fault. And if you have HS, I want you to remember something. This is not your fault either. Okay, it it is what it is, and listen, there are great drugs and great doctors out there and great things happening within the community for HS. And I'm hoping to highlight, spotlight, whatever you want to call it. I'm hoping to do all that through this podcast. Uh, I know HS is not only a physical disease, it leads to mental disease. And you're probably like, what in the world is this guy talking about? Well, if you're a sufferer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But a lot of the doctors, especially the dermatologists, and I love them, they're great, especially the ones that know about HS, which is starting to become more and more common. They try to deal with the physical aspect of it, with different drugs, antibiotics, um, biologics, different, things to try and control it physically. And I appreciate that, because, it's a little bit easier to walk around or even get up whenever you don't have a huge abscess on your scrotum. And if you don't know what that feels like, what I want you to try to do is get a lit charcoal briquette, wait till it turns nice and gray so it's good lit, and then put it in your underwear and try to smuggle it through airport security, because some days that's what it feels like. And that's another reason also why for right now this podcast is audio only. Eventually I will be going to video when I have the proper cameras to do it, but for right now I have the proper audio to do it. So we're going to go from there with that, and it's so that I can stay mobile. I want to be able to do this for you guys from a emergency room, from a hospital room, from a doctor's office, wherever it is that I need to do it. I plan to do it for you guys. All right, that's what this podcast is. So I do have a few different segments. I do have people that will be coming on shortly in episodes to come. I am going to try to touch all the subjects, whether it's mental health with HS, which is a big subject that I don't think is touched on enough. Sex health with HS, it's a very common thing that a lot of us HS warriors, have issues with this, because how do you explain to your partner, I have in very sensitive areas, abscesses or boils that hurt, so I might not be able to perform in in the regular way. And it's like I always say, and I know some of you are gonna grab a dictionary for this. Just because you'll stick and balls don't work, don't mean I can't go down there and do cunnilingus. That's right. I'm talking about giving head. Sometimes that's just the way an HS warrior has to do it, because hey, we all have needs. I mean, hell, 2 years ago I was in the hospital. I had a really really bad flare up, and I had sepsis. So I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, and after the first week I started feeling better. They put a heart monitor on me. And back in the day, the heart monitors were right next to the bed, going boop, boop, boop. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Well, this day and age, the heart monitors, guess where they're at? They're at the nurse's station. So it's like connected, I think, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. I'm not sure. But they get to see it. So, after they come and wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and take all your vitals and everything, I was like, fuck it, man. I'm awake. There's only one way to go back to bed. Yo, I'm going to rub one out. Well, if you don't know this, whenever you start rubbing one out, it causes your heart rate to jump up from a resting heart rate. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, they want to know. I had nurses busting into the room, and I got caught red-handed. And let me tell you, man, yeah, insurance does not cover a release like that for the nurses to perform it. So, yeah, it was very embarrassing. But it's part of having HS. It's a part of, it is what it is. Hopefully you guys got a good little laugh off of that little story. I'm going to try to make you guys laugh. I don't take anything too seriously, because at the end of the day, we're never getting out of life alive, and my coping mechanism for a lot of things is comedy. I will laugh in the face of danger. I will make fun of it. And hopefully you guys enjoy this. So back to HS, as we're talking about HS and we're going through it and everything. Just a few keynotes if you're just learning about Hidradenitis Suppurativa. Man, I'm just going to call it for HS from now on, okay? I follow the HS Foundation, and if you're not following them, man, as a patient, let me tell you, they've got some great resources, you know. And it's just, a few things. First of all, it's not contagious, so whenever someone sees it, a family member, a potential intimate partner, whatever it might be, it's important to remember it's not contagious. You're not going to spread this to them. They have it, they have it. It's not an infection, so it's not like, you got an infection. It acts a lot like it, but it's not, okay? And like I said before, it's not a result of poor hygiene, all right? There are people all over the world living with HS. Are some people more affected than others? Actually, yeah. Women, and let me tell you, from going to the support groups and all the online groups, I can tell you, for every one male or cis male, I don't know how, for every one guy, there are probably 6 women with HS, all asking questions and everything else. So it's mostly women that have it, but men have it too, Also, and this is interesting, and I didn't know this till today, people who are black or biracial are more likely to have HS than Caucasian people. Great. And I know this one, genetics is can be a part of it. I have a sister. She's going to remain nameless. I got to protect the innocent, if you know what I mean. But she has HS, okay, and she deals with it. And as a matter of fact, she found out the name of HS because of me, and yeah, we deal with it. It is what it is. Her case is mild in comparison to mine, but I will never take away the pain that it is. As a matter of fact, I might be a little bit envious of her, where I wish it wasn't so, I wish that mine wasn't so bad. I wish I could go back to a time when mine was very, very mild. But then again, when mine was very, very mild, nobody knew what it was. So catching it early on, I think, is a great way to deal with it. Let's see, a lot of things. I do have a few different segment ideas for the show. One of the feelers I put out there on Instagram, which, by the way, if you're not following, please go follow us. There's a Facebook page, HS Warrior Podcast. There's an Instagram page, the HS Warrior Podcast. Anyway, and I'm going to create a few others. YouTube is coming, obviously, where you might be listening to it there. But I put out a few feelers where it was Ask a Warrior. It's almost like a Dear Abby thing, where anonymously you can write in your questions, concerns, stuff like that about HS from other sufferers or people that want to know. Of course, you got to pick your own nickname, and I would be answering it. Whatever the question might be, to the best of my abilities, or the best of my abilities, and maybe even a guest's abilities. Like I said, I do have guests lined up. It's going to be great fun. I know I have a dermatologist who's already agreed. I'm going to keep that confidential till the day it airs. All right. I have a dermatologist in training. That's right. A new hope, as I like to call it, for HS, because I think it's great that more and more younger doctors to be are starting to learn about this. So it's much more faster to a diagnosis. I have other warriors that I plan on bringing on because I have such a good repertoire with them. Yes. Let's see what else. And I got a couple other tricks up my sleeve. I am definitely reaching out to others about this podcast, as far as guests, things like that. If you want to highlight your story, you think you got an interesting story to tell about HS, hey, I'd be more than happy to collaborate with you. You don't have to come to Miami, Florida. There are ways around it. I'm able to record Zoom meetings, Zoom calls with what I have. So that was definitely interesting. We will definitely be doing that. So I put out a few feelers for the Ask a Warrior. It's a one that I really like because you get an honest opinion, and I'm just going to give my opinion. I'm no medical professional. Once again, Jesus, it feels like I got to say this a million times, but I am no medical professional, and I am just trying to do the best that I can, with this podcast. And it definitely, I'm open to critiques. I'm open to everything. Please come at me with it, Most importantly, though, is getting it out in the open and talking about it publicly so we end the stigma. And that's the thing. There's a big stigma running around. There's ways, that some doctors don't, they don't have to go home with it. We do. As a warrior, we have to live in the real world where, it's not easy when you're walking around and you're seeping through your bandages and you're leaking through your pants. And, somebody, hey, I think you sat in something. Oh, yeah, thanks. Something I got asked a long time ago was, well, what do you miss most about when you didn't have HS? I was like, I remember when I used to be able to wear khaki pants. I don't even own anything that isn't dark, And I'm sure a lot of HS warriors are the same way. And it is not easy, man. And I'm telling you, you're not alone. I know I'm not alone. And this podcast is here for you guys. We are the warriors. We are the ones that deal with it, And sometimes, you just got to say, fuck the world and do it. Don't get me wrong. I know what it is to have a really bad flare. And you don't want to do anything. As a matter of fact, you start thinking about doing things that you've never thought about doing. Hell, I live in Miami where it's very, very Latin community. I've been to Santeria priests, babalaos as they're called, sacrifice chickens to try to get rid of this disease. I wish that was a joke. It's not. I've Jesus, I think I've done everything. I think I've prayed to everything and anything. I'm like in that scene from Talladega Nights. Help me, Tom Cruise. Help me, Oprah Winfrey. Help me, baby Jesus. Help me, Jewish God. Whatever. I don't care. Yeah, that's what it's been like sometimes dealing with a few of these flares. You're willing to do anything, and trust me, nothing is more embarrassing than going to a hospital and be like, "Hey, my nutsack is highly inflamed." They're like, "Can you please take a seat?" No, asshole, I can't. You take a fucking seat. I'm gonna stand up or lay on my side, but my nuts are on fire. And yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. I am at the point in my journey, sadly enough, where medication is not going to control this. I am at a point where I will be having surgery. I have to lose weight for the surgery, which let me tell you, is very difficult to lose weight when it's difficult to move and very difficult to sweat. I mean, just sweating alone is painful. If you don't know what I mean, try sweating with an open wound. Now, put that open wound in a sensitive area, like in between your thighs, on your buttocks, something like that, where, wow, okay, now you want me to work out and sweat? Hold on. And move around at the same time with all this. So it's not easy for the warrior. Of course, if you were just to see me out in public, you'd be like, this is a normal big dude, man. What's going on? Why? He's just being lazy. He doesn't want to work out. He doesn't want to move. You know, those are the things that are happening. And like I said, you never know what's going on below the armor. Okay. That's right. So if you see me and I'm walking, which I've been trying to do, and I'm walking, hey, man, I'm doing the best that I can. And that's all we can try to do is try to make today better than yesterday and try to do the best that we can. So, yes, I'm at a point where surgical intervention, it's not, oh, you need it. No, 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 no. It's not that, oh, you want it. No, no, no. It's that it's needed. Part of the surgery I'm going to have because of the area of all my scar tissue and stuff, I'm going to be with a colostomy bag. So that's another reason why I'm trying to make this podcast portable. It's not because of the colostomy bag, because I'm going to be in the hospital for a few weeks recovering. And I'm going to try to release a new podcast once every 2 to 3 weeks. Like I said, I'm learning as I go. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm hoping to grow the audience, hoping to grow the podcast. I'm very happy about it, but it is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to be with a colostomy bag. Now, the surgeon, was really worried when she told me, oh, you're going to need a colostomy bag. And I saw it in her face. And it's not easy to tell a patient, for your recovery, you're going to need a colostomy bag. So that's another surgery on top of the surgery I'm going to do, and then another surgery to reverse it. And we'll get into all that later. Now, this is just to let you know the way I deal with things. I started looking down and around, and I put on the most serious face I could get, I could muster up, and I'm pretty good at doing that. And I said, I think that this is horrible. And she, was trying to be compassionate with me. And before she could even get out a word, I was like, I think this is horrible that we couldn't do this back in 2020 during the great toilet paper shortage. Watching her frown, turn upside down, and getting everyone in that room, the nurse and the doctor, to start laughing is what made my day. Because what am I going to do? It is what it is, I need the surgery. This needs to be done, and hey, how can I make the most fun of it? Hey, during the great toilet paper shortage, why couldn't I have that? I'd never be worried about toilet paper anymore. So, yeah, that's just the way I deal with things. If you're, and let me tell you, I don't mean to offend. And if you're a person who takes HS very, very seriously, this might not be the podcast for you, and I do apologize, but for the most part, I've learned that most HS warriors through all the support groups I'm a part of have a great sense of humor and find what I say entertaining and hilarious. I'll never forget one day I was sitting there in bed just having a bad flare, and I came up with a joke and I put it into a group that I'm a part of, and I said, I would say fuck HS, but there are too many holes to pick from. Now, If you don't know about HS and you heard that, you'd be like, well, what is this guy talking about? All the other warriors were laughing at this. They were enjoying the humor because they get it, man. There are a lot of tunnels, a lot of holes, in our body. We are giving off some stanks sometime, man. Let me tell you. And I am definitely one of them. I know there are so many other people that don't want to admit to it, but other warriors that need to smell their drainage because they want to know what's going on. Is it badly infected? Does it smell like an infection? How bad is my odor going on right now? So we've all done that. And it is what it is. We're all warriors. We're all here. Shed some light. So that coming the Ask Dear Warrior, where I get to answer your questions anonymously, whatever it might be about. Obviously, guys, don't come in here and asking for medical advice. If you want medical advice, like serious medical advice, go see a doctor. Go see a dermatologist. If you don't know where to find a dermatologist that might have a clue on what to do with HS, let me tell you, a great tool is the Hope for HS website. I'm going to go ahead and in the description, I'll give a link to it if you don't know where it is. But just in case, it's the HS foundation.org. All right. And they actually have a page on the HS Foundation resources, HS specialty clinics. All right. And it basically has a map. If you're in a purple area, great. If you're not, I'm sorry. But it has a map of where to find clinics that specialize in HS. And whenever you find those clinics, as I go to one here in Miami, Florida, let me tell you, it is a life changer. A life changer, okay? So that's a great tool to use. Make sure to stick that around, put that in your back pocket. There are a lot of great different tools to use, and the HS Warrior has all different types of tools, whether it's, gauze, tape, ways around the tape. And trust me, I have figured out some ways around the tape. One Halloween, I went streaking, and people were commenting on how great of a Chewbacca costume I have. That's how hairy I am. And I had to figure out ways around tape because tape and hair are no fun together. No fun whatsoever. So, like, for instance, I use, to keep my gauze in place, I use postpartum panties, and I put them on, and it helps keep, they're disposable postpartum panties. And number one, they're absorbent. They breathe, which is very important because, oh my God, non-breathable material is like, man, that is like Satan's freaking butthole for me. I do not like it. I do not want it. It is no bueno, no good whatsoever. So I use these disposable postpartum panties. I put them on, and it keeps the gauze in place. And they're absorbent. They do great. So I guess you could say cross-dressing definitely saved my life. I also go to, and I believe you can get a CVS. It's a little bit more expensive. I learned where to get it cheap. It's non-adhesive bandages that I actually buy it from a horse supply place. They use it to wrap up the horse's legs, but I think at like CVS, Walgreens, wherever, one of those major drugstores, they sell them as non-adhesive bandaging, which is great for holding, it in place. And there are other products, other soaps that I use. I bounce around a lot with soaps. If something works good for me, I will use that. I know we've all probably heard of the Zote soap. I've used that before. Different. The one that's great is Hypercleanse, obviously surgical soap. If you're a true warrior, you know all about it. Another thing that works good for me is bleach baths, and I am open to hearing what works good for you guys. Now, I'm just saying what works good for me is one thing. What works for me doesn't always work for you, and I get that. But we won't know till we try. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying to go out there and try everything because some things are just irreversible. I remember when I started on biologics, That was a huge decision for me. A huge decision for me. It was not easy to figure that out because you read all the possible side effects and about biologics, and you read, well, it could give me this, it could give me that, it could give me the other. Well, sometimes you just gotta try something. You never know until you try it. And listen, I've met other warriors that have had the bad reactions to biologics that can't take the biologics, and it's not easy for anyone. So, like I said, you really gotta weigh your risks and what you're willing to risk before you try it. I've mentioned before about going to see a Santeria priest. I've seen a priest. I've seen a rabbi. Hell, I've even taken holy baths and baptisms to try to relieve this pain. I know I've tried just about everything. And I know I can't relieve it all the way, but what I can do is come here and talk about it and share it with people and bring it out into the limelight. Let's bring it out into the spotlight. Let's really talk about it. If I were to mention a disease like cancer, prostate cancer, the flu, whatever it is, uh, whatever other diseases there are, that are common, that are very, very common in the world, but you mentioned hidradenitis suppurativa, and for the most part, you get looks like, what language is that? Well, number one, it's English, but yeah, you mentioned HS, and you get weird looks because a lot of people don't know about it, and we're gonna change that, one person at a time. Every week on Sunday, I try to set 4 goals for the week. It's very easy, okay? And one of the reoccurring goals for me is talk to someone about HS, And if you're having an issue dealing with life and dealing with HS, maybe the weekly goal thing might be for you. I'm not saying you should do it, but hey, give it a try, set up a few goals. Talk to this person, do that, do this, do that. But one of my reoccurring goals, I always set more than 4, but 4 is a minimum, and hey, sometimes on some weeks, that's all you could give is a bare minimum. All right, so sometimes you just gotta go off and do it like that. But you gotta set your goals, and one of my goals is talking to someone about HS. So obviously, if you're listening, I'm talking to you about it. Even if you know all about it, that's fine. Let's talk about it. Let's bring it out more into the spotlight. Let's talk about, man, why does that person have a hard time sitting down? Why does that person not want to go out? Why is that person having to take 4 to 5 showers a day? Because other HS warriors, I know for a fact, you guys are taking as many showers per day because of all the bandage changing. Why is HS not more easily recognizable? Hey, we're going to talk about that too. We are going to bring this disease out into the limelight. We are going to figure it out. We are going to talk about it. We are going to be entertained because that's what we're here for. We're here for entertainment. Okay? That's exactly what we're here for, is entertainment. All right? And the thing about it, we're here to be entertained about HS, hidradenitis suppurativa. All right, get used to it. We're going to be talking about it. I hope to see you guys for the next podcast and for all of them, whatever it is. Don't forget all your questions, concerns, or even if you want to come on the show, you can email the email is hswarriorpodcast@gmail.com. Okay. Once again, that's hswarriorpodcast@gmail.com. Guys, please go support me on Instagram, Facebook. I will be having Twitter pretty soon. All of them, social media, guys. Please go support. Thank you so much for listening. That concludes our first episode.